brought to you by the Center for Professional Education at UTC. A lot of familiar faces. I see we've got some returning guests. So you guys didn't get enough of me last week. That's good. That's good. Well, I want to say a couple of things before we get started. One, thank you all so much. The feedback that we have been receiving for this effort has been overwhelming. There have been some folks that have sent me some, and I won't share the details, but some folks have sent me some really touching messages over the last week about how important this really very small effort has been for them. And so we're very appreciative of that. It is something that we're happy to do. We thought it would be a good idea. We didn't know how much of a good idea that it would be, but we're very, very appreciative of all the kind words that you've been sharing with us. And you know, we always try to start off the day with a little rundown of the good things going on in the world. And I saw this morning, speaking of all the coming together that we're doing, I saw in the news this morning that Lady Gaga is going to be performing a concert this weekend. I think it is Saturday, maybe. I forget now which day, but it's going to be, interestingly enough, it's going to be aired on all three of the major networks, NBC, CBS, and ABC. So that'll be exciting. It sounds like a pretty exciting lineup of folks that are going to be participating in that. So that's exciting. But now here we are today. Long before Lady Gaga, there was Dr. Donna Van Natten. I know, I can't help myself when it comes to those things. But anyway, we're so excited to have Dr. Donna Van Natten joining us today. I ran into Donna. I met her first several years ago, actually, at a chamber council meeting, and was just really inspired by her. She gave a really wonderful talk on body language, and so we've stayed connected with Donna. The Center for Professional Education has stayed connected with Donna, and she's taught some things for us and done some things for us over the years. And as we were thinking about another speaker that we could engage in this workstation program, we reached out to Donna to see if she might be interested in doing something, and thankfully for us, she was. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Donna Van Natten, and she's going to talk to us today and Thursday about tone of voice. Donna, it is all yours.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. You can do one of those waves like this where everybody's saying hi kind of thing. Welcome to the digital world, huh? Never did you think that people would see the inside of your house as much as they are now, right? But I see some of you have a green screen behind you. I tried to do a green screen and it didn't work out too well, so I'm just stick with the bookshelf and a wall and half window over here. But hey, thanks for having me. Unfortunately, I do work with Ginger through your organization, John, as you know, and fortunate to go out to clients and so forth. And so I met with the team, and of course, there's a million ideas rolling around our head, but he said something quick, something they can get, something they can use, and something halfway entertaining. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm entertaining. I did my hair today. How's that for entertaining? I haven't worn makeup in so long that I'm had to really think about it this morning. So I think a lot of us know how that feels, right? All right, so of course, if you have questions as I go through half of this today, please ask. I am a researcher, like many of you probably on the call, and do enjoy sharing things about nonverbal communication. So let me just dive right in here. First thing I like to share is what's called my disclaimer, like when you go to the movies, that I do talk about body parts, and sometimes I do talk about sensitive things. And it can be very culturally biased and very data driven. So anything that you might have a question about, ask me later, or throw it in the box, and I'll be happy to look up and tell you where that came from, because I consider myself the conduit of information. So going from there. So just to let you know, one of the things about Zoom that's very interesting, and many of you have already known this before, is that we are a visual processor. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why Zoom and WebEx have just, exploded, is our animalistic social need to see each other so we can process the best. So those of you that I can see your face, like Jill and Ginger and John and so forth, hi. And And so, just to keep in mind that we learn the best this way. So if you're in charge of hosting a Zoom or something like that, do encourage the video part because it helps us connect socially and be able to process the information through this particular step. So many of you have maybe heard about a famous researcher called Albert Moravian, and he's from the 50s and 60s, and he had some groundbreaking research. And through a series of studies, he figured out that we communicate 3 primary ways, which collectively add up to 100%. So it wasn't just one study that he did. So sometimes you might hear like Moravian Study. It's actually studies. So through words, tone of voice, and our nonverbals or body language, which is what I study, this is how we communicate. And so since I don't have you in front of me, let's play a little guessing game. So you have to unmute for just a second. And if you know the answer, don't blurt it out yet. So if you've never heard of this before, so I want you to jump in and throw some numbers out. So of that 100%, what do you think in our communication are our words? Throw out some numbers for me.
30.
30.
25.
25.
50.
50. Anybody else?
20.
20. Okay, so I'm kind of here in that little range, 20, 30, 40. What if I told you it was about 7%? Now,
Whoa.
it's not exactly what we thought. Now, that's not to say that words aren't important, as we know, when we're writing an email or we're giving a speech, but they're not our primary way that we communicate. We use the other mechanisms much more. So now we have 93% left, plus or minus. So tone of voice. Now, before you jump with your answers, you know what tone of voice is, because tone of voice is what gets you in trouble in your relationship because you're using that tone of voice. And I don't like your tone. You know what I'm talking about. It's the one we use with our pets when they've done something bad and we can't say, get over here. We have to say, come on, come on, come on, so I can beat you when I get you. So probably not 7%, probably a little bit more. So what do you think, percentage-wise? There's some numbers.
35.
35.
60.
60.
75.
75, right. Usually married men say 99. I know I've gone over 100. Okay, all over the board here. But actually, it's about 38%. Okay. Yeah, so somebody at 35 was pretty close, which tells you what's left for our nonverbals. Like carry the 1, that's a 5, it's a 55%. It's not a math class today, so you lucked out. So when you look at those numbers, it's probably not what you thought it was, but if you think about it, when we used to go to work and you could look down the hallway, you could pretty much figure out what was going on and you did not have to hear the words, right? Or if you turn the TV sound down, you can figure out what's happening because we're really in tune to the nonverbal, okay? Now, same goes for tone of voice. And you know what this feels like because you've been on the phone with somebody. Maybe you have a problem at a store or you're having an issue and you pick up all the background sounds and you hear that person go, and you're like, oh, what is that? Or something just is a little off. So you don't really care about the words per se, but you feel everything else is being picked up. So that's called the 738-55 rule, okay, as you move forward, if you want to share this with anybody. But in saying that, we know that communication is a two-way responsibility, but sometimes it doesn't go well. And in the research, we call that the error rate. So back to our guessing game. What do you think the error rate, or how often it doesn't go well or isn't effective, is in communication out of 100%?
50.
50, half the time?
75.
That's a man, 75. You're being generous there, weren't you? Anyone else? Nobody guessed it. Actually, it's not that bad or as bad as the numbers that were thrown out there. It's 25%. Or 1 in 4. And if you think about that, from how an email goes to a phone call to an in-person meeting, for the most part, they go pretty well. But sometimes you walk in and you come out going, that didn't go like I thought it would. Or that email that I sent, what the heck? I didn't mean what was picked up or what went wrong. So I usually pose the question of, can we get the error rate to 0? Shake your head. We can, we can't. Well, if you did this, you're correct. We cannot get the error rate to 0. And that's because while our communication may be perfect, somebody else got involved and messed it all up. But can we improve the air rate? Absolutely. And that's what I teach, is being intentional about what we do. So for today, we're going to skip over the words part. We're going to jump to that tone of voice and 38% part. So today, when we talk about the elements of tone of voice, we're going to talk about 9 of them total. Today, we're going to talk about the tonal part. And then on Thursday, a little teaser, we'll come back on the style part. All right, so here I made this nice little graph for you. So on the left side of your screen are the tonal elements, okay? And pitch. Pitch is one of them. They even made a movie or two called what?
It's perfect.
There you go. Thank you, Laura. Pitch perfect. Yeah, Laura's like, I know this one. I know this one. Right, pitch perfect, because we pick up on pitch. And just to let you know, of all of these elements on the screen, pitch is the one that is so unique to us that it's the one that enables us to find each other when we're in a store. So, you know, you're calling out and you listen for that pitch, or you hear your name like, oh, that person's mine. It's our pitch. Or another word is the frequency, okay? And it's pretty much what you're born with. Kind of like I always say, like you run into somebody and they kind of have this high pitch like this, and you're like, wow, you should be a princess at Disney World. Yes, because they're just kind of born with it. But yeah, and we like pitch, kind of, depending if it works in our favor, and it's a very sensitive part of our tone of voice, because when it triggers an emotion right there in the middle of our brain, our pitch tends to do what? It goes up, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, very sensitive. So the second part of our tone of voice is loudness, also known as amplitude. And by show of hands, because I can see many of you on the screen, raise your hand if you know somebody and you're a friend who's the loud friend. Come on, be honest. All right, keep your hand up. Now, those of you that did not raise your hand, you might be the loud friend. Sorry about that. So, my little timer. So, loudness. Now, we'd like to think we have a lot of control over this, but if you think about it, the size of our lungs, our larynx, our esophagus, our vocal cords, we're pretty much born with those. And as we push air through our lungs, it just kind of comes out to a super loudness sound, unless we're sensitive to it. And we're like, I need to use my inside voice. And even those loud people, their inside voice sounds like this. I am using my inside voice. And those are the friends that you don't want to go to the movies with. But it's okay, because nobody goes to the movies anymore. All right, moving on for today's exciting stuff. Timbre. Not like timber, but timbre as in the quality of the voice. And this is the one that we like because we like certain voices that have that rich voice. For example, you know who plays the voice of God, right? Morgan Freeman. I doubt when Morgan was 5 years old, he said, you know what, this voice, I'll play God one day. But there's something about the quality and texture of his voice that makes it perfect. And you always hear in the radio world, I have the perfect face for radio kind of thing. It's that quality or richness to the voice of just the anatomical structure of what's going on that enables the air to push through. Because some of us, no matter what we do, will not have a radio voice or a TV voice. And then finally, the last part of the tonal is resonance. And resonance is how we pronounce sounds. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is it has to do with the structure. Typically, the structure of our mouth, our tongue, our throat. Again, it's very anatomical. So you may have a lisp or you hear somebody else who has a lisp and you're like, oh, something's off right there. I'm picking up on something. Or maybe they don't pronounce the THs or some type of sound, and no matter how much training you typically have, it may always be there. The point that I want to share here when I think about the tonal part is a lot of times this is out of our control. It's typically what we're born with, and we don't pay much attention to it. We just say, well, that's just how I talk. But everything on the style side that you see on the screen for Thursday is absolutely in our control. How's that for a teaser, John? Huh? So I've run through half of the 38% of the tone of voice, and you can work on these. You know, you can take lessons, if you will, or you can work on how loud you are, or to try to work on a deeper voice. To give you an example, a famous female in history who was an elected official, she would try to run for office, and this is not in the US, and she kept not getting elected. And so finally she sought help on this stuff right here, and she learned to lower her pitch, and she was elected. Does anybody know who I'm talking about?
Margaret Thatcher.
Who?
Margaret Thatcher.
You knew it. It is Margaret Thatcher. Good job. Good job. If I had a prize, I'd give you one. So here, I'll buy you a virtual cup of coffee. Pretend it's Starbucks. Oh, wait, hold on. Pretend it's a Starbucks. Good job. Yes, Margaret Thatcher. She actually, knew that her natural way that she spoke, people didn't like. And so she, was very intentional about that. And that's what I'm talking about, that air rate. So if you know you have something going on, or people don't tend to be drawn to how you speak, which would be kind of funny if you think about it, don't talk, then there's something you might want to do, and you can seek out help for it. But remember, not really in our control. So in saying that, you might just want to know, and John said I could do a shameless plug here, so I will. I've actually written 3 books. The first one in the middle came out about 3.5 years ago that totally talks about this stuff. And in the workplace for men and women, very loaded with research, but put into a user-friendly kind of thing, riddled with sarcasm on every paragraph. And then in January, I'm fortunate that I was approached by a publishing house out of New York and wrote The Body Language of Politics, which does not tell you how to vote. It tells you what to look for, so you know how to vote. And then in January, because it got pushed from June to January for obvious reasons with the virus, Body Language for Women's coming out, which is a more you as a person kind of thing, not necessarily in the workplace. So I look forward to connecting with you on social media. And I think most of us do this now. And I am local, which is nice. Usually I'm fortunate that I travel around the country, but not anymore. I travel this way, which is great when you're half dressed and half pajamaed, right? Exactly. So John said to keep it to about 15 minutes. And John, how'd I do?
As always, Donna, you did fantastic. Thank you so much. It's interesting, as I was listening to what you were talking about, just the intersection of anatomy, biology, psychology, and in our communication styles, because I guess it was obvious to me. I never really thought about it, but so much of my tone is dictated just by the structural makeup of my voice and my throat and my lungs and things of that sort. So it's fascinating to think about that, and I appreciated the Margaret Thatcher story, because as you were saying that, I thought, gosh, I wonder how just a fluke of our anatomy could have changed world history over time because of some conflict or something. And it was fascinating that you had a story about that very thing right there. So that was really cool.
Great.
Any questions for Donna this morning? Eunice Davis.
Hey, Donna, thank you so much for being here. I have a question about the tonal. Is tonal connected with different cultures? Like, I know Italians are very loud, like me. So
with a lot of this, right? Actually, yes, to some degree, it is very environmental, or it can be environmental in our youth. But when we talk about the style, which is I think what we're leaning for when you talk about Thursday, which definitely environmentally connected, or how we're raised or culturally driven. Absolutely. Great question though. Yes.
Any other questions for Donna? Come on, you guys are not normally this quiet.
Well, it's because they're very sensitive about using their tone of voice. But if you think about it, this is very beneficial as we do a lot of our work on the telephone now, and what's in our control, and how do we still make that connection with people when we can't see them, and to be sensitive not only of what we're putting out there, but what we're taking in and assessing as well of what we might be hearing as part of tone of voice. Because when you take away the visual, if you think about it, if you have 730 at 55, when you take away the visual, that 55% of thing, or most of our bodies, if you will, it gets redistributed, okay, into our words and our tone. So you can imagine how tone really ramps up when you only have a phone conversation with somebody. You know, you're definitely picking up on the little things that they're saying, but remember, they're also picking them up from you.
It's a very good point. I won't mention any names, although they are on this call right now. I've been accused of being very loud on Zoom, and I don't really know why that is. I guess I find myself just needing to mentally, I guess I think I need to talk louder so that the other person can hear me, not recognizing that they have full control of the volume on their end. So anyway, it's interesting, even just the mental mind tricks that your brain can play with you when you're maybe even subconsciously thinking about, well, I'm communicating with somebody that's in a different room, in a different place, and I need to speak louder so they can hear me.
Absolutely. So I hope you tune in Thursday, because I actually find this side of the whole, 9 elements, if you will, I find this side more fascinating because all of it's in our control. And you'll be very like, oh my gosh, I noticed that with somebody, or oh yeah, I'm guilty of that too, or that's something I'll actually work on starting today.
Very good, very good. Well, thanks, Donna, so much. I'm going to give you another little plug, although I have not had a chance to read The Body Language of Politics yet myself. For those of you that are interested, Donna did a really very fascinating interview on scenic routes a couple of months ago now. I don't really remember, but I listened to it. Yeah, I listened to it, and it was really interesting. Some of the characters, if I recall, some of the characters that she mentioned in that interview are no longer players in the political dynamic, but nonetheless, you will be able to immediately relate to some of what you saw and will continue to see on the political stage. So if that sort of thing is of interest to you, check out her interview on scenic routes. I know they store those on their website. And we'll look forward to reading that book as the political season continues to unfold in front of us.
Yeah, and and if I can say, if it interests you to ask me other things about it later, fortunately, I'm in a niche market, so I'm fortunate that I was recently in the Wall Street Journal, and I do get calls, East Coast, West Coast, to give interviews or podcasts and so forth. And if you happen to tune into any of those and you have follow-up questions, let's follow up with them. So we're in a unique opportunity to be able to sit in front of each other with sorta, and which goes against everything that I study, and might be an opportunity to have a conversation if there's things that you're wondering about later. We can use like, my friend has a question.
Well, very good. Well, it looks like our questions for today have wrapped up. Donna, thank you again so much for doing this. And we will look forward to Style on Thursday.
Hey, John.
And thanks. Take care.